Houston, integrity for cabin temps.
Hey, go ahead, Christina.
Yes, it is very cold in the cabin. Any chance you can make it warmer or reduce the cabin fan speed a bit more so the ventilation is not blowing as hard?
Checking. Yeah, Christina, understand. While y'all were asleep, we did turn one of our knobs that we have, and that was the rad loop set points, and we saw a very small increase in the temperature. And so we're going to take a look at some of these shell heaters, and we'll let you know when we start putting some of that in work, and we can see if that affects the temperature in a positive way.
Thank you, Mike.
Also, Christina, when y'all get a chance up there, we'd appreciate an AGA reading.
Copy, we'll get on that now. Speaking of post-sleep duties, we did check the avatar lights. It was 8 LEDs on in the top row, 7 in the bottom.
Integrity, Huntsville on Orion to Earth 1, we copy for avatar. That's a good config. Thanks.
And Integrity Houston, the burn pad
Copy,
is...
and hello, Huntsville.
The burn pad is now available on the PCDs, should be version 2, and we'll be ready for a conference whenever you are.
We see it, and give us a few.
This is Mission Control Houston, and you just heard quite a bit of communication between NASA astronaut Christina Koch on board the Orion spacecraft and the Capcom or capsule communicator here in Mission Control Houston. You also heard a little bit of communication with one of the flight controllers at the Huntsville Mission Control Center, and that is in Huntsville, Alabama. That is the Payload Operations Integration Center. And they're typically responsible for managing science payloads. They were talking briefly about the Avatar. and that is a science investigation that is flying as part of the Artemis II mission. AVATAR stands for a Virtual Astronaut Tissue Analog Response, and this investigation will use organ-on-a-chip devices, or organ chips, to study the effects of increased radiation and microgravity on human health. Currently, the team here in Mission Control Houston continues to prepare for the perigee raise burn scheduled to take place in about 29 minutes from now. The final targeting for that burn is in the Capcom or capsule communicator here in Mission Control Houston inside the Artemis flight control room. That was the final burn conference ahead of the PRB or perigee raise burn, and those burn conferences typically take place. Burn is completed in about 23 minutes from now. The crew on board the Orion spacecraft will perform a brief checkout of their emergency communications on the Deep Space Network once they are at the most distant point of their high Earth orbit, which is necessary before that TLI burn. And then after that emergency communications checkout is complete, the crew will then resume their sleep period. Again, their sleep period for today was actually split into two parts, about 4 hours for each part of their sleep period, in order to complete the perigee raise burn that is scheduled for about 22 minutes from now.
Houston, integrity for burn pad and plan deltas.
Go ahead, Christina.
Hey, Mike, two small items. The trim limit on the burn pad is 0.2. On the plan, we see 0.1. And second item, our burn pad has a predicted EI time. Can you verify we can ignore that for now?
All right, Christina, you can ignore the EI time. We're checking on the term.
Okay, good readback. And with that, our next check with you is for your go, no-go confirmation.
And Christina, Houston is go for the burn.
Integrity copies.
All right, Christina, and you are correct. Trim limit is 0.1.
Copy, thank you.
This is Mission Control Houston, and we do have confirmation that the team here in the Artemis Flight Control team, or in the Artemis Flight Control room, are go for the perigee raise burn. That burn expected to take place in about 20 minutes from now. There was some additional discussion between the Capcom or capsule communicator here in Mission Control and NASA astronaut Christina Koch, currently on board the Orion spacecraft. They were talking about some of the data that is in the burn pad. Again, that is a plan that is uplinked to the crew ahead of any burn to ensure that the crew and the team here on the ground are on the same page about the specifics of that burn. Currently on your screen, you're seeing a look at the Artemis real-time orbit website, or AROW, A-R-O-W. That website is available to the public on nasa.gov throughout the duration of the mission, and we provide those live views here on our continuous coverage feed when we don't have live camera views from the Orion spacecraft itself. But this view provides the live data and telemetry coming from the Orion spacecraft. So currently the Orion spacecraft is about 43,000 miles from Earth, and then it has about 223,000 miles to go until it gets to the moon. Again, this comes following a liftoff yesterday at 5:35 p.m. Central Time, 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time. The Orion spacecraft lifted off atop that SLS, or Space Launch System rocket, from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Since that liftoff, about 13 hours and 14 minutes ago, the crew has completed a proximity operations, or ProxOps demonstration, after the ICPS, or Interim Cryogenic Propulsion System, separated from the Orion spacecraft. The crew on board the Orion spacecraft used the ICPS as a docking target to practice those manual maneuvers. And then a little bit after that was completed, the crew did enter their sleep period. Again, about a 4-hour sleep period before they were awoken about 45 minutes ago to complete the perigee raise burn operations coming up here shortly. This is Mission Control Houston, as the Orion spacecraft and its crew, along with the team here in Mission Control Houston inside the Artemis Flight Control Room, continue to prepare for the upcoming perigee raise burn. slated to take place in about 15 minutes from now. The solar array wings on the Orion spacecraft, or the SAW, are now in position for that burn. The Orion spacecraft has 4 total solar array wings on the service module. Each solar array is made of 3 panels, and the length of each wing is nearly 23 feet long, or about 7 meters long. These 4 solar arrays are used to convert light into electricity, and they can turn on 2 axes to remain aligned with the sun for maximum power. And on that visualization there in the center of your screen, you can see those 4 solar array wings on the Orion spacecraft.
Integrity Houston, the solar arrays are in position for the burn.
Integrity copies.
Integrity Houston, less than a minute to the burn attitude maneuver.
Okay, we copy that.
And good morning, Jeremy, and also the tank pressures are good for the burn.
Okay, we copy that.
This is Mission Control Houston, again hearing some continued communication from the crew on board the Orion spacecraft. That Orion spacecraft currently in a high Earth orbit, preparing for its perigee raise burn in about 11 minutes from now. The team here in Mission Control Houston calling up to the crew through the Capcom or capsule communicator position, confirming that the Orion spacecraft is in the correct attitude for that burn. The attitude is the orientation or the pointing direction of the spacecraft, and it is determined by 3 different rotational axes known as pitch, roll, and yaw. And it is important to ensure that the spacecraft is in the correct attitude prior to the upcoming perigee raise burn, but also in preparation for any of the burns.
40 seconds.
And this is Mission Control Houston. We are about 1 minute out from the perigee raise burn. Again, that burn expected to last about a minute, and that burn will raise the perigee, or the highest point of Orion's orbit. Apologies. The burn will adjust Orion's perigee, or the lowest point of its orbit, into the correct orbital geometry to set it up for its Trans-Lunar injection, or TLI burn. Again, that TLI burn is planned for Flight Day 2. After the perigee raise burn is completed in just a few moments, the crew will then step in to perform a brief checkout of their emergency communications system on the Deep Space Network. After that checkout is complete, they will then prepare for their sleep period, which will then last about another 4 hours.
Sleep is important for the mission.
And that perigee raise burn is now underway.
They are showing it these animations, not the actual footage from the spacecraft.
And there on your screen, you can see the 8 Pulse-X engines on the Orion spacecraft. Now, this is a visualization of the Orion spacecraft, as we don't currently have live views from the spacecraft itself, but this uses the data and telemetry from the spacecraft. Again, this perigee raise burn expected to last about a minute. Currently, everything is proceeding as planned. And we do have confirmation that that burn is complete. It was a good burn.
We're tracking a good burn.
And we see the same, and with a bonus trim burn.
It's right. Go for 90 seconds.
And you just heard confirmation from NASA astronaut Christina Koch and the Capcom, or capsule communicator, here on the ground in Mission Control Houston, that we did have a good perigee raise burn. That burn lasted about 50 seconds using the 8 Pulse-X engines on the Orion spacecraft service module.
50 seconds. Okay.
And there on your screen, you are seeing a live view of the Orion spacecraft from one of its solar array wing cameras, and you can also see another one of the solar array wings on the bottom right hand of your screen from the Orion spacecraft. Again, this live view comes following that perigee raise burn.
That is Earth, right?
And there in the distance, now just going off of the screen, we did see a distant view of the moon following that perigee rays burn coming from that solar ray wing camera. Again, the Orion spacecraft is currently about 220,000.
And good morning, Victor. We'll take those readings.
Good morning, Mike. You have CO2 2.8, O2 19.0, 68.1 degrees, 14.55 psi.
All right, Victor, we copy all. Really appreciate it.
Happy to help.
It's there at the solar panel. There.
Houston, integrity. We would like to ask you to finish up step 23 of orbit burn execution for us, if that's okay, so we can get position for the EMERCOM check.
जब मैं 10 बार कॉल कर रहा हूँ उस टाइम तो उठाई नहीं इम्पोर्टेंट कमेंट के बीच में
Definitely, Christina. We'll take care of the rest of 23.
Thank you.
This is Mission Control Houston. Over the past few minutes, there have been various communications between the crew on board the Orion spacecraft and the team here in Mission Control Houston. One of the first calls we heard was from NASA astronaut Victor Glover, who is reporting some of the AGA, or anomaly gas analyzer readings. The AGA is a portable laser-based instrument that detects trace contaminants aboard Orion.
EMERCOM checkout, just confirm you are handling step 1 of 21.2.8.
And good morning, Reid. Yes, we are taking care of step 1, and in step 2, the antenna will be number 3.
Copy 3.
This is for you, bro, if you are watching. that as well.
And this is Mission Control Houston. The crew is now stepping into their emergency communications checkout using the Deep Space Network. The Deep Space Network is...
We're picking up in step 4 of EMERCOM checkout on antenna. Well, we'll get to antenna 3 in a second.
Houston copies.
Again, this is Mission Control Houston. That communication there between NASA astronaut Reid Wiseman and the Capcom or capsule communicator here in Mission Control Houston discussing the emergency communications checkout that is currently taking place. Again, that emergency communications checkout is being done connected to the Deep Space Network. The Deep Space Network is NASA's international array of giant radio antennas that support interplanetary spacecraft missions, plus a few that orbit Earth. And this Deep Space Network also provides radar
इतना खराब इंटरनेट हो रखा है।
and radio astronomy observations that improve our understanding of the solar system and the larger universe. During this emergency communications checkout, the crew will perform various voice tests of the emergency communication system using the Deep Space Network. This checkout is being done to ensure that if the Orion spacecraft was to lose communications, they would be able to regain communications from Mission Control Houston using this emergency comm system in the event it lost that communications. But again, that's not expected. This is just one of those checkouts that is being performed on the Orion spacecraft before that Trans-Lunar injection or TLI burn slated for tomorrow. There were some additional checkouts of the spacecraft completed prior to their initial sleep period earlier today. They tested out some of the cabin configurations, the environmental control life support systems, and some of those checkouts will continue into the flight day 2 ahead of that trans-lunar injection burn, just to ensure that the spacecraft is in a good and steady state ahead of its outbound trip to the moon.
They confirm that they are on the right trajectory and the mission is going well. I'll go. I am going to stay there. We will wait for them to reach to the moon. And I will do it again in another state. We will cover this whole journey. At one point, we had 18,000 miles per hour velocity. Yeah. Oh, wait.
Decent integrity end of line, comm checks.
They are checking the forms. Let's see communication systems.
Integrity Houston, I'm calling on OE1. I heard your call down on EMERCOM. We're still configuring uplink. I'm going to attempt to call on EMERCOM on uplink here shortly.
Okay, we are in instruction 26. Do you want us to hold here and leave EMERCOM on? Do not execute 26.
Yes, let's stay here, please. Let's stay here, please.
Hey, Mike, we have you loud and clear on EMERCOM as well.
This is Mission Control Houston, the crew and the team here at Mission Control Houston.
Houston, we have you loud and clear. Okay, copy that. Okay, we're picking up in step 8 of EMERCOM, powering off emergency comm radio.
This is Mission Control Houston, the crew here on the ground, along with the Artemis II crew on board the Orion spacecraft, just completed their EMERCOM or emergency communications checkout using the Deep Space Network, and that checkout was successful on both ends. Again, this is just part of a series of checkouts of various different systems on board the Orion spacecraft ahead of the Trans-Lunar injection burn. That TLI burn is slated to take place in about 12 hours from now, and that burn will send Orion and its crew outbound toward the moon and back. Now that the emergency communications checkout is complete, the crew will deconfigure that setup, and then they will step into their pre-sleep period before going to sleep for about 4 more hours. Again, their sleep period today was split into 2 4-hour blocks due to the perigee raise burn.
On S-band.
Reid, we have you loud and clear on 1. How many?
We have you the same. We just didn't want to let you go without saying the view out window 3 from about 38,000 nautical miles. The entire half of the Earth is spectacular.
I wish we could see that.
I love to hear that so much, Reid. So glad you guys are getting to experience it. I do have 3 quick questions for y'all before we sign off for the rest of the night.
Go with your 3 quick questions, and then I'll give you one more kind of sit-rep update here.
Fabulous. Can you just give us a quick report on the audio quality for EMERCOM in terms of like clarity and pacing and stuff?
It was crystal clear, maybe a little lower volume, but that might have been my fault because I didn't have the volume all the way up on the F7 EMERCOM panel, but it was outstanding.
All right, excellent. Great to hear, Reid. And then my other question is about the cabin temperature. We did raise the shell heaters. It looks like it's gone up a couple of degrees in there. Hopefully that's a little better. The question is, was the coldness more just from the cold air directly coming from the vents, or would you say it was just a general cabin temperature?
I'd say it is both. The general cabin temperature is low, and then the spacecraft over by the toilet and the side hatch is noticeably colder than the side over by the PWD and the food warmer. It's high airflow volume and just cold air.
All right, Reid, thanks for the report. And my last one is actually more of a comment than a question. I know we were having a little trouble with the handheld mics and y'all's volume coming down to us. Just wanted to be clear how the mic is set up. It sort of has a front and a back. They look the same, but the microphone side, just under the top of the mic, will have a little black raised nub that you can feel and maybe particularly see. That is the microphone side of the mic. You flip it over 180, it looks the same, but that is the noise canceling side of the mic. So just ensure that you're talking into that side for that.
Why did you make it that way?
And that is a great note. We've adjusted by how we hold the mic. I do confirm we are speaking into the mic side. And how has the volume been on this operation? Adjusted by how we hold the mic. I do confirm we are speaking into the mic side. And how has the volume been on this operation?
Great.
Ever since y'all have been awake for this PRB ops, it's been loud and clear. We have no concerns.
That's great. We'll keep with how we're holding it. Speaking of the temperatures, we are going to retrieve our crew suitcases so we can get long sleeves on. We have been using the ones that we have out so far. We're into one of the E lockers. Can you let us know where all of the crew suitcases are? All they say on ours are D and E, and we're wondering if we should open both sides or not.
All right, we're checking.
And Mike, we found Glover Hansen